The winter of 1563 had been particularly cruel to the village of Willowbrook. Plague had ravaged the countryside, claiming dozens of lives, including the husband and 2 daughters of Eliza Valmont. Left with nothing but grief and a small plot of land that yielded barely enough to sustain herself, Eliza had aged beyond her 45 years. The once vibrant woman now moved with the weariness of someone much older, her shoulders hunched beneath the weight of her sorrows. On a bitter morning in early spring, when frost still clung to the withered grass, a messenger arrived from the neighboring village. He carried a letter sealed with wax, a rarity for someone of Eliza's station. "Are you Eliza Valmont, niece to Marian Everleigh?" the messenger asked. Eliza nodded, her hand trembling slightly as she accepted the letter. Her Aunt Marian, a woman she had met only twice in her lifetime, had passed away. The letter, written by the local priest who had attended Marian's final confession, informed Eliza that she had inherited her grandmother's old cottage and garden at the edge of Fern Hollow, a day's journey from Willowbrook. "What would I want with a decrepit cottage?" Eliza murmured to herself as she folded the letter. The messenger had already departed, leaving her alone with news that seemed more burden than blessing. Nevertheless, with nothing to keep her in Willowbrook but painful memories, Eliza gathered her few belongings. Her threadbare dress, once a deep blue, had faded to the color of a winter sky. The neckline had long ago stretched low from years of wear, exposing her collarbone and the silver pendant her husband had given her, the only valuable she had not sold to buy food during the hard months after his death. Eliza set out at dawn the next day, arriving at Fern Hollow as the sun began its descent. The cottage stood at the edge of the village, half hidden by overgrown bushes and surrounded by a wild, untended garden that had clearly not been touched in years. The thatched roof sagged in places, and the wooden door hung crookedly on rusted hinges. When Eliza pushed it open, dust motes swirled in the beam of fading sunlight that illuminated the single room. A rickety table, 2 chairs, a bed frame with no mattress, and a fireplace filled with cold ashes were all that remained. "This is my inheritance," Eliza said aloud, her voice echoing in the empty space. A worthless hovel and an overgrown garden. As she stood in the doorway, a sound caught her attention, a soft whining coming from behind the cottage. Following the noise, she discovered a thin, mangy dog cowering beneath a gnarled apple tree. Its ribs protruded beneath matted fur, and it regarded her with wary eyes. "Were you my aunt's?" Eliza asked, approaching slowly. The dog backed away, still whimpering. "I have no food for you," she said softly. "I have barely enough for myself." That night, Eliza slept on the hard-packed dirt floor, using her cloak as both mattress and blanket. The wind whistled through cracks in the walls, and twice she awoke to the sound of the dog scratching at the door. Morning brought no improvement to her circumstances. Eliza stepped outside to survey what remained of the garden. Weeds choked what might once have been neat rows of vegetables. At the far end stood a small shed, its door hanging by a single hinge. The dog had returned, watching her from a distance. "You might as well come closer," Eliza called. "We are both unwanted things now." To her surprise, a boy's voice answered from behind her. "The dog is not unwanted. His name is Rook." Eliza turned to find a child of perhaps 10 years standing at the edge of the garden. His clothes were as worn as her own, his face smudged with dirt, but his eyes were bright with intelligence. "Who are you?" Eliza asked. "Peter Keller," the boy replied. "My mother works in the tavern. I used to bring food to old Marian sometimes." He gestured toward the dog. Rook belonged to her. "He has been waiting for someone to return." "Well, I am afraid I am a poor substitute," Eliza said. "I have nothing to feed him or myself." Peter considered this for a moment. "I could help you clear the garden," he offered. "There might be something worth salvaging." Eliza looked at the wilderness before her. "Why would you help me?" The boy shrugged. "Old Marian used to tell me stories. She said her garden was special, that it held secrets." "What kind of secrets?" Eliza asked, suddenly curious. "She never said exactly. Just that what grew here once fed everyone in the village during a terrible famine long ago." Eliza glanced at the tangled mess of vegetation. It will take more than a boy and a half-starved woman to bring this back to life. Nevertheless, with nothing else to occupy her time, Eliza accepted Peter's offer. Together they began the laborious task of clearing away the weeds. By midday, they had uncovered what might once have been a vegetable patch. The soil, though overgrown, was dark and rich. As they worked, Rook the dog hovered nearby, occasionally pawing at the ground near an ancient oak that dominated one corner of the garden. "He has been doing that for days," Peter said, noticing Eliza's gaze. "Digging and whining. I think he is trying to find something." "Probably just after mice or moles," Eliza replied, but she watched with interest as the dog continued to scratch persistently at the same spot. That evening, Peter brought a small loaf of bread and a wedge of cheese, leftovers from the tavern kitchen. Eliza protested, but her empty stomach won out over her pride. "Tell me about your aunt," Peter said as they shared the meager meal. "Old Marion never spoke of family." Eliza sighed. "I barely knew her. She was my grandmother's sister, much older than my mother. There was some quarrel between them long ago. My mother never spoke of it, and I met Marion only twice as a child." "She was strange," Peter admitted. "People in the village thought her odd. Some called her a witch, but my mother said she was just lonely and different." "A witch?" Eliza frowned. "Why would they think that?" Peter shrugged. "She knew things about plants that others did not. She could make medicines from leaves and roots. And she never seemed to go hungry, even in the lean years." He paused. "Some say she had a secret garden hidden somewhere, but no one ever found it." After Peter left, promising to return the next day, Eliza sat in the doorway, watching as twilight descended. Rook had finally stopped his digging and now lay near the oak tree, his head resting on his paws. "What are you looking for, dog?" Eliza murmured. As darkness fell, she noticed something unusual about the oak tree. In the fading light, what she had taken to be natural patterns in the bark now seemed almost like carvings, faint symbols etched into the ancient trunk. Curious, Eliza approached, running her fingers over the markings. They formed a pattern, circles within circles, and what might have been letters in some language she did not recognize. The next morning, Eliza woke to the sound of Rook barking excitedly. She emerged from the cottage to find the dog had resumed his digging with renewed vigor. Peter arrived shortly after, carrying a small sack. "I brought seeds," he announced proudly. "Turnip and cabbage. My mother said you could have them." Eliza thanked him, touched by the generosity. "Peter, do you see those markings on the oak? Do you know what they mean?" The boy studied the carvings. "Old Marion used to draw symbols like these sometimes. She said they were very old, from before the time of Christ." As they cleared more of the garden, Eliza found herself drawn repeatedly to the oak and Rook's determined digging. By midday, the dog had created a sizable hole, and as Eliza bent to investigate, she noticed something glinting in the disturbed soil. Reaching down, she extracted a small metal box, no bigger than her hand. It was made of tarnished copper, its lid decorated with the same circular symbols that marked the tree. "What is it?" Peter asked, peering over her shoulder. Eliza turned the box in her hands. It was locked, with no obvious way to open it. "I do not know," she admitted, "but your old Marion must have buried it here for a reason." That night, after Peter had gone, Eliza sat by the light of a small fire, examining the box. Rook watched her intently from across the room, as if waiting for something. After hours of trying, Eliza managed to pry the lid open with the tip of her knife. Inside lay a folded piece of parchment and a small cloth pouch. The parchment contained a letter written in a spidery hand. "To whomever finds this box, most likely my niece Eliza, if the priest followed my instructions, what I have hidden here is more precious than gold or jewels. It is life itself. In the pouch you will find seeds that have been in our family for generations, dating back to the time when our ancestors were not Christians, but followers of the old ways. These seeds have been blessed by earth and time. They will grow where nothing else will, bear fruit when all other plants fail, and heal sicknesses that no physician can cure. There is more to find if you know where to look. The key lies in the symbols on the great oak. Count 7 paces from the tree toward the rising sun, then dig deep. Guard these secrets well. There are those who would take them by force if they knew. Mary and Eliza's hands trembled as she opened the pouch. Inside were seeds of various sizes and colors, unlike any she had seen before. Some were deep red, others black as night, and a few seemed to shimmer with an inner light that defied explanation. "What secrets did you keep, Aunt?" Eliza whispered. The next morning, she showed the letter to Peter but kept the existence of the seeds to herself. Together, they counted 7 paces eastward from the oak tree and began to dig. Their labor was interrupted by the arrival of a well-dressed man on horseback. He surveyed the cottage and garden with obvious disdain before dismounting. "You must be Marian Everleigh's relation," he said without introduction. "I am Lord Edgar Vale, master of these lands." Eliza straightened, conscious of her dirty hands and the low neckline of her dress that exposed her collarbone as she had been bending to dig. She tugged at her bodice, self-consciously. "I am Eliza Valmont, my lord." Her niece. Lord Vale's eyes lingered on her longer than was proper. "I came to express my condolences and to make you an offer. This cottage and land, I would buy them from you. A fair price for a woman alone." Something in his tone made Eliza wary. "Thank you, my lord, but I have only just arrived. I have not decided what to do yet." The nobleman frowned. "The offer will not remain open indefinitely. Think carefully. What can a widow hope to grow in this wasteland?" After he departed, Peter tugged at Eliza's sleeve. "Do not sell to him," the boy whispered urgently. "Lord Vale tried to buy from old Marian many times. She always refused." Why would a lord want this worthless patch of land? Eliza wondered aloud. Peter shrugged. "People say his family once owned all of Fern Hollow, generations ago. Perhaps he simply wants it back." They resumed their digging, and by late afternoon had uncovered a small iron chest. Unlike the copper box, this one had a proper lock. Without the key, they could not open it. "We will need to break it open," Peter suggested. Eliza shook her head. "Not yet. Let us wait and see if we can find the key first." That night, after Peter had gone home, Eliza examined the mysterious seeds more closely. On impulse, she planted a few in a small patch of cleared ground near the cottage door. To her amazement, by morning tiny green shoots had already broken through the soil, impossibly fast for any normal plant. Over the next few days, Eliza and Peter continued to clear the garden. The shoots grew at an astonishing rate, developing into plants unlike any Eliza had seen before. Some had leaves that seemed to shimmer in the sunlight, while others produced small white flowers that gave off a sweet, intoxicating scent. Rook had taken to sleeping beside the iron chest, which they had moved into the cottage for safekeeping. The dog growled whenever anyone approached it, as if appointed its guardian. One evening, as Eliza was preparing a meager supper, there was a knock at the door. A woman stood outside, wrapped in a cloak despite the mild spring evening. "Are you the niece of Marian Everleigh?" she asked in a hushed voice. When Eliza nodded, the woman glanced nervously over her shoulder before continuing. "I am Agnes, the herbalist in the next village. Your aunt and I were friends. May I come in?" Inside, Agnes examined the plants growing by the door with evident wonder. "So it is true," she murmured. "She entrusted them to you. You know about the seeds?" Eliza asked. Agnes nodded. "Marian showed me once, though she never revealed where she kept them hidden. They are ancient, passed down through your family line for centuries. Some say they came from the Holy Land during the Crusades, others that they are even older, from the time of the Druids." "But what makes them special?" Eliza pressed. "They grow where nothing else will. They resist blight and drought, and some have healing properties beyond any herb known to modern medicine." Agnes leaned closer. "That is why Lord Vale wants this land. Rumors have circulated for years about Marian's garden. His grandfather tried to seize it during the Great Famine, but failed." "The famine?" Eliza recalled Peter's words about Marian's garden once feeding the village. 50 years ago, Agnes confirmed. When every field for miles withered and died, Marian's grandmother, your great-grandmother, grew enough on this small plot to feed half the village. Lord Vale's grandfather claimed the plants were grown with witchcraft and tried to have the land seized. But the villagers protected her. After Agnes left, Eliza sat by the fire, contemplating all she had learned. The iron chest remained locked and mysterious, but the plants continued to flourish. Within a week, some had already produced fruits, small, sweet berries that burst with flavor unlike anything Eliza had tasted before. Peter had become a daily visitor, helping in the garden and bringing news from the village. His mother, a widow named Mary, sometimes came with him, bringing small gifts of food or household items. Through them, Eliza learned that Lord Vale had been asking questions about her in the village and that strangers had been seen watching the cottage from a distance. One morning, Eliza woke to find Rook pawing frantically at the floorboards beneath her bed. The dog whined and scratched until Eliza moved the frame aside. There, hidden beneath a loose board, was a small iron key and another folded piece of parchment. The parchment contained a carefully drawn map of the garden, marked with symbols matching those on the oak tree. Certain areas were circled, with notes in the same spidery handwriting as the first letter. One notation near the center read, "Plant the red seeds here at midsummer, harvest at full moon." The key fit the iron chest perfectly. Inside, Eliza found a journal bound in leather, its pages filled with detailed drawings of plants and instructions for their cultivation and use. Beneath the journal lay a collection of small vials containing different seeds, each labeled in the same careful hand. And at the very bottom of the chest was a sealed letter addressed to my dear niece Eliza. Eliza broke the seal with trembling fingers. "My dearest Eliza, if you are reading this, then you have found what our family has protected for 15 generations. These seeds and the knowledge of how to grow them have been passed from mother to daughter since before the time of William the Conqueror. What you hold is power, the power to feed many in times of famine, to heal the sick when physicians fail, and to bring forth abundance from the smallest plot of land. This power has made our family both revered and feared. The Vale family has sought to possess our garden for generations. During the Great Famine, when I was a child, Edgar Vale's grandfather tried to seize our land by force. My grandmother resisted, and in the struggle that followed, a fire was set. Your mother, then just a baby, was inside the original cottage. I managed to save her, but was badly burned. Your grandmother took your mother and fled, believing I had perished. By the time she learned I had survived, the rift between us had grown too wide to mend. Now the seeds pass to you. Use them wisely. Share their bounty, but protect their source. The symbols on the oak tree are a calendar and guide. They will tell you when to plant each variety and where they will thrive best. One final secret remains. Beneath the stone in the center of the garden lies proof of the Vale family's crimes, documents that show they seized many lands unlawfully during the famine, and evidence of how your great-grandfather truly died. Use this knowledge only if you must defend yourself against them. With all my love, your Aunt Marian. Eliza sat motionless, the letter clutched in her hands, as the magnitude of her inheritance became clear. Not worthless land, but a treasure beyond price, the means to feed many and heal the sick, and perhaps to right old wrongs. Over the following weeks, Eliza followed the instructions in Marian's journal, planting the ancient seeds according to the patterns indicated on the map. The garden flourished beyond all expectation. Plants grew with supernatural vigor, producing vegetables, fruits, and herbs in abundance despite the small space. Word began to spread through Fern Hollow of the miraculous garden. When the blacksmith's child fell ill with a fever that the physician could not cure, Eliza prepared a tea from the leaves of one of her plants. The child recovered within a day. Soon others came seeking remedies or simply food. The spring had been dry, and many of the village's conventional crops were failing. Eliza shared what she could, teaching Peter's mother Mary how to prepare the healing teas and poultices. Lord Vale returned as the garden reached the height of its productivity. This time, he brought 2 men at arms with him. "Your witchcraft has not gone unnoticed," he said coldly. "The church takes a dim view of women who practice unnatural arts." Eliza stood her ground. "There is nothing unnatural about my garden, my lord. Only ancient knowledge and God's bounty." "You will sell this land to me," Vale insisted, "or face accusations of witchcraft. A widow alone has few defenses against such charges." "She is not alone," came Peter's voice. The boy had entered the garden unnoticed, followed by his mother and several villagers. "We can all testify that her plants have healed the sick and fed the hungry. Is that the work of the devil or of God?" Lord Vale's face darkened with anger. "This matter is not finished," he warned before departing. That night, Eliza decided it was time to uncover the final secret. By moonlight, she and Peter located the stone at the center of the garden, a flat slab half buried in the earth. With great effort, they moved it aside to reveal a small cavity containing an oilskin package. Inside were documents dating back 50 years, land deeds showing properties that had been transferred to the Vale family under suspicious circumstances during the Great Famine. Most damning was a confession, written and signed by a man who had served Lord Vale's grandfather, admitting to setting the fire that was meant to kill Eliza's entire family and to the murder of her great-grandfather when he threatened to expose Vale's scheme. "This is proof of terrible crimes," Eliza whispered. "But after so many years, who would believe it?" "The magistrate would," said a voice from the cottage doorway. Agnes the herbalist stepped into the light. "Especially since the current magistrate is the grandson of one of the families who lost their land to the Vallas." The next day, Eliza took the documents to the magistrate in the neighboring town. After reviewing them, he issued orders for Lord Vale's arrest on charges of attempted intimidation and reopened the investigation into the old crimes. Word spread quickly, and by the time Eliza returned to Fern Hollow, the entire village had gathered at her cottage. They came not as an angry mob, but as grateful neighbors, bringing gifts and offers of help to expand the garden. Throughout that summer, Eliza taught others how to tend the special plants. The garden expanded beyond the original boundaries, with new plots prepared according to Marion's instructions. When drought withered the regular crops in the surrounding fields, Eliza's plants continued to thrive, producing enough to feed not just Fern Hollow but neighboring villages as well. Peter became like a son to her, spending more time at the cottage than at home. His quick mind absorbed the knowledge from Marion's journals, and he showed a natural talent for understanding which plants would heal specific ailments. By harvest time, Lord Vale had fled rather than face justice, his lands and title forfeit. The magistrate, true to his word, began the process of returning wrongfully seized properties to their rightful heirs. On a golden afternoon in late autumn, as Eliza and Peter harvested the last of the season's bounty, Mary joined them in the garden. "The village council met yesterday," she said. "They have voted to build a proper storehouse for the seeds and to establish a trust to protect this land for generations to come." She smiled at Eliza. "They want to name it Marion's Garden in honor of your aunt." Eliza looked around at what she and Peter had created, not just a garden, but a community united in purpose. From worthless inheritance to priceless treasure, from lonely widow to respected healer, her journey had come full circle. That evening, as they sat by the fire, Rook sleeping contentedly at their feet, Peter asked the question that had been on his mind for some time. "Will you teach others what you know about the seeds and how to grow them?" Eliza smiled, her hand going to the pendant at her collarbone, no longer her only valuable, but still her most precious. "Yes," she said softly. "But we must choose carefully who learns the deepest secrets. Your aunt protected this knowledge through famines and persecutions, wars and accusations of witchcraft. We must be equally vigilant." She picked up Marion's journal, its pages now supplemented with her own observations. "This knowledge does not belong to us alone. It belongs to everyone who hungers, to everyone who suffers. We are merely its keepers for a time." As winter approached, the cottage was transformed. No longer decrepit and empty, it buzzed with activity as villagers came to learn, to share, and to prepare for the coming season. The roof had been repaired, the walls reinforced, and a proper bed now stood where Eliza had once slept on the dirt floor. In the center of the garden, where the stone had hidden its secrets for so long, Eliza and Peter planted a sapling, a new oak to stand beside the ancient one, a symbol of renewal and continuity. And on its trunk, Eliza carefully carved the first of the symbols that would guide future generations, circles within circles, the eternal pattern of seasons and growth, of endings that become beginnings, of inheritances that seem worthless until their true value is revealed.